The market on Colony 9 was never silent. Bright neon lights flashed across steel walls and voices from many worlds filled the air. People shouted prices, machines hummed, and vendors tried to pull every customer closer. Among the noise and crowd, one man walked with calm steps. His name was Daniel, and today he only wanted one thing: fresh meat. Daniel had worked long shifts in the colony's cargo docks, and he often came here for food. He trusted this market because they promised real meat, not the printed protein blocks most people ate. He wanted something natural, something he could cook slowly and maybe share with a friend later. He stopped at a small stall with a red glowing sign. The vendor behind the counter was a short man with nervous eyes. Daniel spoke simply, "1 order of fresh meat." "The best cut you have," the vendor froze. His smile weakened. He looked left and right as if checking who was watching. Then he leaned closer and asked, "Are you sure you want that order?" Daniel frowned. "Yes, why?" "I've bought here before." The vendor gave a quick nod, then whispered something to a worker standing in the shadows. The worker hurried away through a metal door at the back of the stall. Daniel waited, tapping his hand on the counter. He felt something strange in the air. The crowd's noise seemed distant now. Other vendors were watching him, whispering to each other. He noticed a tall guard standing nearby, pretending to look at fruit but really staring at him. His chest tightened. Why was everyone acting so strange for a simple order? The vendor forced a smile. "It will take a few minutes, sir." "Please wait," Daniel nodded, but unease grew inside him. He had lived in the colony for 5 years. He knew when people were hiding something, and right now it felt like the entire market was hiding something from him. Minutes passed. Finally, the worker returned, pushing a small container on a hover cart. The box was sealed, glowing faintly with cold mist. Daniel expected the vendor to open it, show him the cut of meat, and let him check the freshness. Instead, the vendor simply pushed the cart toward him, his hands shaking. "There is your order," the vendor said quickly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's it? You won't show me what's inside?" The vendor looked down. "No need, it is the best. Something was wrong." Daniel could feel it in his bones. Still, curiosity pushed him forward. He reached for the latch, and with one sharp click, the container opened. Cold mist rose into the air, covering his hands. At first, he thought he saw pale skin, maybe a strange animal, but as the mist cleared, his heart jumped. Lying inside the box was not meat. It was a girl. Her skin glowed faintly, almost silver under the lights. Her hair was long and dark, spread across the cold surface like spilled ink. Her eyes were closed, but her chest moved slowly, showing she was alive. And when her lips parted slightly, Daniel saw the faint shine of teeth, human-like but too sharp, too perfect. Daniel staggered back. "What is this?" His voice shook. The vendor avoided his eyes. "Your order. Fresh, very fresh." Daniel's mind raced. This wasn't meat. This wasn't an animal. This was a living, breathing person, though clearly not human. He looked again at her strange features. Her ears were longer, sharper. Her skin shimmered like metal dust in sunlight. She was alien, but also fragile, like someone trapped far from home. Anger rose in his chest. "I asked for meat, not—" He stopped, unable to even finish the thought. The vendor leaned closer, whispering, "It is what you asked for. Some customers prefer this kind. The rarest delicacy. Once you take her, the deal is done." Daniel felt sick. Around him, people kept glancing at the box, then quickly looking away. They all knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a secret trade. He wanted to shout, to call the guards, but then his eyes moved back to the girl. Her eyelids trembled. Slowly, painfully, they opened. And in that instant, Daniel froze. Her eyes glowed with a soft blue light, bright and otherworldly. She looked straight at him. Not at the vendor, not at the crowd, but at him. And then with a weak voice she whispered, "Daniel." His breath caught in his throat. She knew his name. The vendor flinched. The guard in the corner took one step forward. The crowd grew silent. Daniel's heart pounded louder than the market noise. This was no simple order. This was a trap, and the question burned inside him. Who was she, and how did she know him? The sound of her voice was soft, almost broken, but it struck Daniel like thunder. She had spoken his name. Not a guess, not a mistake. She said it clearly, as if she had known him for years. Daniel stepped back, his heart racing. His hands trembled as he looked into those glowing blue eyes. They were not human eyes. They shimmered like liquid light, deep and endless, yet they carried something familiar. Fear. How do you know my name? Daniel whispered. The girl blinked slowly, her lips trembling. Because I was sent to you. Daniel's breath caught. Sent to him? This wasn't possible. He had only wanted dinner, not destiny. Behind him, the vendor cleared his throat nervously. You should close the box, sir. Take her home quickly. Too many eyes are watching. Daniel turned sharply. What are you talking about? This is a person, not meat. The vendor's face twisted. His voice was low but sharp. Not human. Not a person. A product. You placed the order. Now she is yours. Daniel's stomach churned. The crowd around the stall avoided looking at him, but he could feel their silence pressing in. The tall guard moved closer, his hand brushing the handle of his weapon. The girl stirred inside the container. Her fingers moved slightly, delicate and trembling. She looked weak, as though every breath was a battle. Daniel could not stop staring at her. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight, her features strange yet beautiful, and her fragile body curled in fear. No, Daniel said firmly, his voice louder now. This isn't meat. This isn't food. This is slavery. The vendor hissed through his teeth, eyes darting nervously toward the guard. Lower your voice. You don't understand. You were chosen for this order. Refusing is dangerous. Daniel's chest tightened. He felt a trap closing around him. But still his eyes returned to the alien girl. Her gaze locked with his, and for a brief moment everything else faded. The noise of the market, the threat of the guard, the whispers of the crowd. It was only him and her. Her lips parted again and she spoke softly. Please, help me. The words struck deep. Simple words, yet heavy with desperation. She wasn't asking to be bought, she was asking to be saved. Daniel swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed for him to walk away. To close the box, leave the market, and forget he had ever seen her. That would be safe. That would keep him alive, but he couldn't. He reached forward and gently touched her hand. It was cold, far too cold. She flinched slightly, then relaxed as if comforted by his touch. The guard's voice boomed suddenly, breaking the silence. Transaction is complete. Take the cargo and leave. Daniel looked up sharply. She's not cargo. The guard stepped closer, his heavy boots echoing against the metal floor. His hand rested on his gun. Then leave her. Walk away now and nothing happens to you. The crowd pulled back, forming a circle of distance as if expecting violence. Whispers spread like smoke. Some people looked eager, others afraid, but none would interfere. Daniel's mind raced. He had no weapon, no allies, only his stubborn heart. He should run. He should escape before the guard made his move. Yet the girl's glowing eyes still held his. And in that moment, Daniel knew. Walking away would haunt him forever. He straightened, his voice steady. I'm not leaving her. The guard's face darkened. Then you've made your choice. The vendor raised his hands nervously. Stop, please, not here. Too much attention, but it was too late. The guard drew his weapon, a black pulse pistol humming with energy. He aimed directly at Daniel. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Some stepped back, others leaned in to see. The market was alive with tension, yet no one dared to move between them. Daniel's muscles tensed. His eyes darted around, searching for a way out. The hover cart, the crowd, the maze of stalls, no escape was clear. His heart pounded. He had seconds before the guard fired, and then something impossible happened. The alien girl lifted her hand. Her fingers glowed faint blue, faint but growing brighter. The mist inside the container swirled violently, rising like smoke. The pistol in the guard's hand vibrated, then suddenly ripped away, flying across the air and crashing to the ground. The crowd screamed. Some ran, others froze, stunned. The guard's eyes widened in shock. What is she? Daniel stared, his mouth dry. He had no answer. All he knew was that she had saved him. The girl's hand fell back weakly, her strength fading. She looked at Daniel once more and whispered, Run. Her voice was so weak but filled with urgency. Daniel didn't think. He grabbed the hover cart and pulled it away from the stall, pushing through the panicked crowd. The vendor shouted after him, but Daniel didn't look back. He only heard the pounding of boots as more guards began to move. The market behind him erupted in chaos, shouts, alarms, and the crackle of energy weapons. But Daniel kept moving, his breath burning, his heart wild. He pushed the cart down a narrow alley, the alien girl still inside. her glowing eyes fading but never leaving him. He had crossed a line. He knew it. There was no going back now, and as the echo of pursuit grew louder behind him, one thought consumed him. Who was she, and why was she sent to him? Daniel pushed the hover cart as fast as he could, his breath sharp, his arms aching. Behind him, the market was in chaos. Alarms rang, boots pounded against metal floors, and voices shouted orders. The guards were coming, and he knew they would not stop. The narrow alley stretched ahead, dark and wet, lit only by broken neon signs. Daniel turned sharply into a side path, pulling the cart behind piles of old crates. He crouched low, gasping for air, his hands trembling. Inside the container, the alien girl lay still. Her glowing eyes had dimmed, her face pale. She looked as fragile as glass. For a moment, Daniel feared she might die right there, and guilt stabbed his chest. Slowly, he lifted the lid again. Cold mist rose, brushing his face. He reached for her wrist, gently checking her pulse. To his relief, it was there, weak but steady. The girl opened her eyes only halfway this time. "Daniel," she whispered again, her voice like broken wind. Daniel froze. You keep saying my name. How do you know me?" "Who told you?" Her lips trembled. "I saw you. Before." Daniel frowned. "Before where?" "I don't know you." She shook her head weakly. "Not with eyes. With mind." The words sank into him like ice. She had seen him, not physically, but through something else, something deeper. Daniel leaned closer. "You mean telepathy? You were in my mind?" The girl gave the faintest nod. Her eyelids fluttered, and for a moment Daniel thought she might slip away again. But then she whispered, "I was sent to you. You are different." Daniel sat back, his heart pounding. Different? He was nobody. Just a dock worker, living a tired life on a colony that barely cared if he lived or died. Why would someone like her be sent to him? Before he could ask, voices echoed down the alley. Shouts, heavy boots, the clatter of weapons. The guards were sweeping the area. Daniel looked around desperately. He couldn't push the cart anymore. It was too loud, too obvious. With shaking hands, he lifted the girl out of the container. She was lighter than he expected, her body weak but warm against his arms. Her head rested against his shoulder, and for a strange moment he felt protective, like carrying something precious. He slid behind the crates just as a squad of guards ran past the alley entrance. Their armor gleamed, their rifles ready. One paused, scanning the shadows, but then moved on. Daniel held his breath until the sound of boots faded. The girl stirred in his arms. Her eyes opened again, brighter this time.
"You did not leave me," she said softly. Daniel looked down at her.
"How could I? They would have killed you, or worse." She studied his face, her glowing eyes reflecting his fear and confusion. "Most humans would leave. You stayed." Her words cut deep. Daniel wanted to argue, but the truth was simple. He had stayed. Against all reason, against all fear, he had chosen her. "Listen," he whispered urgently. "I need answers. Who are you? Why were they selling you like food?" The girl's gaze darkened. "Because my people are rare. Our blood heals. Our body feeds. To them we are only meat." Daniel's stomach twisted. The vendor's words echoed in his mind. The rarest delicacy. Rage bubbled inside him. He clenched his jaw, staring into the shadows. Humanity had gone too far. The girl touched his chest weakly, just over his heart. "But you are not like them. I felt it before. That is why I called you." Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to deny it, wanted to claim he was nothing special. But something in her voice, something in her eyes made him wonder. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps returned, closer this time. Daniel tensed. He had to move. He adjusted his grip and carried her deeper into the maze of alleys. The colony's underdistrict stretched like a labyrinth. Broken walls, dripping pipes, flickering lights. Few people came here unless they had something to hide. They reached a small storage shed, its door half broken. Daniel pushed inside, laying her gently on the floor. Dust rose around them, but at least it was shelter. The girl closed her eyes, breathing slowly. For a while, silence filled the room, broken only by Daniel's uneven breaths. He leaned against the wall, his mind spinning. He had only wanted meat. A simple meal. Now he was a fugitive, carrying an alien girl who claimed she knew him. After a long moment, the girl spoke again, her voice stronger. "They will not stop. They will hunt us, because of what I am. And because of what you chose. Daniel rubbed his face with his hands. Then tell me everything. I need to know what I've stepped into. Her eyes opened, glowing softly in the darkness. My name is Saris. I was taken from my people months ago. Many of us were captured. Some died, some were sold. I was kept alive. Because of you. Daniel's eyes widened. Because of me? I don't understand. Saris nodded slowly. They watch humans. They test them. They chose you for this order. To see what you would do. If you accepted me as meat, they would know. But if you refused. Her words trailed off, heavy with meaning. Daniel whispered, then I failed their test. Or maybe I passed. Saris reached for his hand. Her skin was warmer now, her strength returning slightly. No, you chose the harder path. That means you are not one of them. That means you are the one I need. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't know what destiny she spoke of, or why fate had tied their lives together. But as the echoes of guards searching the streets grew louder outside, he knew one thing for certain. He could not let her go. And in that silent room, with danger pressing in from every side, Daniel felt something strange spark between them. Not fear, not anger, something deeper. A connection neither of them could explain, yet both could feel. And it was only the beginning. The storage shed was dark and silent, but Daniel knew it wouldn't stay safe for long. Outside, the colony's underdistrict was alive with the sound of heavy boots, shouts, and the distant hum of scanners searching for heat signatures. The guards were closing in, and it was only a matter of time before they found him and Saris. Saris lay weakly on the floor, her glowing eyes flickering like fading lights. She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. Daniel knelt beside her. You need rest, he whispered. Saris shook her head. No time, they are coming. I can feel them. Daniel frowned. Feel them? Her voice was quiet but certain. Their thoughts, their anger. They know you took me. They will not stop. Daniel's stomach tightened. He didn't have a plan. He had never been a fighter, never been a hero. He was a dock worker who wanted a meal, not a fugitive running from armed guards. But now with Saris depending on him, he had no choice. A loud crash echoed outside. A door slammed. Boots marched closer. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at Saris. Can you walk? Her lips parted, and she gave a faint nod. With effort, she pushed herself up, leaning heavily on his arm. Her body was light, almost too light, and he could feel her weakness, but her determination burned in her eyes. Daniel opened the shed door slowly. The alley beyond was dark, dripping with water from broken pipes. He heard voices on the main street to the left, so he guided Saris to the right. They moved carefully, every step an echo in his ears. The colony's underdistrict was a maze of shadows, broken walls, and twisted pathways. Daniel had worked in the docks long enough to know some shortcuts, but the guards had scanners, weapons, and numbers. They reached a narrow passage where flickering neon signs painted the walls with sickly green light. Just as Daniel started to feel a small sense of hope, a beam of light swept across the alley. Stop! A voice shouted. Daniel's stomach dropped. A guard stepped forward, rifle raised. Behind him, two more appeared, blocking the path. Saris clung to Daniel's arm. Her voice was a whisper, urgent. Do not let them take me. Daniel's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan. The guards advanced, their armor glowing faintly in the light. Hand over the cargo. The first guard barked. Do it now and we let you live. Daniel's fists clenched. He looked down at Saris, fragile, trembling, yet her glowing eyes begged him not to give in. No, Daniel said, his voice steady. She's not cargo. The guards laughed coldly. Then you die with her. The first guard raised his rifle. Before Daniel could move, Saris lifted her hand weakly. Her fingers glowed, faint at first, then brighter. The air shimmered and the guards froze as if invisible chains wrapped around them. Their rifles shook violently, then flew from their hands, clattering against the walls. Daniel stared in disbelief. You did that? Saris collapsed against him, her strength fading. Not for long, she whispered. The guards shouted angrily, forcing themselves forward. Daniel knew this was their chance. He grabbed Saris and ran past them, dragging her down another alley as the guards struggled to recover. The chase began again. Alarms blared louder now, echoing through the colony. Daniel could hear footsteps multiplying, spreading through the streets like a wave. He turned corner after corner, his breath burning in his chest. Sarah stumbled beside him, but she did not let go of his arm. Her willpower pushed her forward, even as her body grew weaker. They reached a wide service tunnel leading toward the docks. The air smelled of oil and smoke, the ground littered with broken tools. Daniel guided her inside, hoping the noise and shadows would cover them. But halfway through, more guards appeared at the far end, their rifles raised. Daniel skidded to a stop. Trapped. Saris looked at him, her glowing eyes calm despite her weakness. "Trust me," she whispered. Daniel hesitated. Then she raised her hand again, but this time she did not attack the guards directly. Instead, the walls around them began to shake. Loose pipes rattled, sparks rained from old wires, and with a groan of metal, part of the tunnel collapsed between them and the guards. Dust filled the air. The guards shouted, cut off by falling debris. Daniel coughed, pulling Saris through the haze. When they reached the far end of the tunnel, Daniel finally slowed, his lungs burning. He looked at her in awe. "You saved us again." Saris leaned against him, her voice faint. "I cannot keep using this power. It takes too much, but I had to." Daniel nodded. He understood. Without her, they would already be dead. They emerged from the tunnel into the edge of the docks. Giant cargo crates towered above them, stacked like walls. The distant hum of ships vibrated through the air. If they could reach a ship, maybe, just maybe, they could escape this nightmare. But Daniel knew it would not be easy. The guards would be waiting. And Saris's strength was fading fast. He tightened his grip on her hand. "We'll make it. I don't care how many of them come. I'm not leaving you." For the first time, Saris gave him a small, fragile smile. "Then we run together." And as the sound of pursuit drew closer once more, Daniel and Saris disappeared into the shadows of the docks, their escape far from over. The docks stretched like a steel forest around Daniel and Saris. Towering cargo crates rose into the shadows, their sides marked with faded numbers. The hum of engines filled the air, and the distant glow of ships promised escape. But between those ships and freedom stood patrols, scanners, and guards who would never let them leave so easily. Daniel guided Saris into a gap between two giant containers. It was dark and narrow, a temporary place to hide. He leaned her against the wall and crouched beside her, breathing hard. Sweat ran down his face and his chest burned from running. Saris's eyes glowed faintly in the shadows. She was weak, her breath slow, but her gaze remained steady. She watched him carefully, as if weighing his spirit. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low. "You need to tell me everything. Why are they hunting you? Why were you in that box?" Saris closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "Because my people are not free. We were taken, hunted." Daniel frowned. "Hunted by who? By the vendors?" Her head tilted slightly. "Not just vendors. Not just markets, humans, colonies, corporations. They see us as resources, not lives." Daniel's stomach turned. He remembered the vendors' cold words, the rarest delicacy. He thought of the guards' laughter. Rage burned in him, but also shame. Was this what humanity had become? Saris continued, her voice soft but sharp. "My people are called the Eliari. We live far from here, hidden in star systems humans do not care about. We lived in peace, but then they discovered us. At first they traded with us. Then they studied us. Then they learned the truth." Daniel leaned closer. "The truth? What truth?" Her glowing eyes locked with his. "Our blood heals. Our bodies cure sickness. Even death can be delayed with what we are. To humans, we are medicine. To the rich, we are food. That is why they capture us. That is why they sell us." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He looked at her fragile form, at the bruises on her arms, at the way she trembled just to breathe. They had reduced her kind to meat, to medicine, stripping away their lives for human greed. Saris's voice grew quieter. "When they took me, I thought I would die. Many of my people already have. Some were eaten. Some were drained. But they kept me alive. They said I was different, that I was meant for someone." Her eyes shimmered as she looked at him. "That someone is you." Daniel froze. His heart pounded. "Me? Why?" "I don't understand. I'm just a dock worker. I don't matter." Saris shook her head. "You do. I saw you before. Not with eyes, not with flesh, but with mind. We Eliari can reach across thoughts, across time. In my captivity, I searched for hope. And I found you. A human heart not corrupted by hunger. A human who would choose to save, not consume. Daniel's mouth went dry. He wanted to argue, wanted to say she was wrong. But deep inside he knew the truth. When the vendor offered him the chance to walk away, when the guard told him to leave her, he hadn't. He stayed. He chose her. Saris reached for his hand, her fingers light and trembling. That is why they tested you. That order you made, it was no mistake. They wanted to see if you would take me, to see if you were like the others. Daniel's blood ran cold. The market hadn't been random. His simple order had been a trap, a cruel experiment, and now, Saris whispered, because you chose differently, you are marked. A chill ran through Daniel's spine. Marked. That word echoed in his mind. He had seen the way the guard looked at him, not just with anger, but with recognition. He tightened his grip on her hand. Then we run. We don't stop until we're free. Saris gave a faint smile, fragile but real. Freedom is not just escape. Freedom is truth. You must know more, Daniel frowned. What more? She looked into the shadows around them, her eyes distant. The humans do not hunt only us. They hunt knowledge, secrets buried in the stars. My people are part of it. If they control us, they control everything. Daniel shook his head, struggling to keep up. He was no soldier, no leader. But her words carried weight, and he could feel the danger growing larger than he imagined. Before he could reply, the sound of boots echoed nearby. Guards swept through the docks, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Saris squeezed his hand weakly. You must decide soon, Daniel. Will you run for yourself, or will you fight for more than just me? Daniel's jaw tightened. Fear gripped him, but something else stirred inside, something stronger than fear, a fire. He looked at Saris, her glowing eyes reflecting his determination. I don't know what I can fight, but I know this, I won't hand you over. I won't let them win. The sound of metal boots grew louder. Voices shouted commands. The search was closing in. Saris leaned close, her voice a whisper against his ear. Then we fight together. And in that moment, with danger pressing on every side, Daniel felt the weight of revelation settle on him. This was no accident. This was destiny. And it had only just begun. The steel docks echoed with the sound of marching boots. Searchlights swept across crates, painting bright circles on the walls. Guards barked orders, their voices sharp against the hum of engines. Daniel and Saris hid in the shadow of a giant cargo container, pressed close to the cold metal, every breath loud in his own ears. Saris leaned weakly against him. Her glowing eyes dimmed, but her voice was steady. They are closing in. Daniel clenched his fists. He knew she was right. No matter how many alleys they ran through, no matter how many crates they hid behind, the guards were tightening their net. It was only a matter of time. And then, as if to prove the thought true, a voice rang out from across the docks. Daniel. Daniel's chest froze. They knew his name. From behind a wall of guards, a tall officer stepped forward. His armor gleamed under the lights, and a black insignia marked his chest. His voice was calm but sharp like a knife. You cannot run forever. We know where you are. Hand over the alien, and this ends peacefully. Daniel's stomach twisted. He looked down at Saris. She watched him quietly, her face pale but her eyes steady. The officer's voice carried again. Think, Daniel. She is not human. She is dangerous. Already she has used her tricks against us. You know what she is worth. You know what her blood can do. Hand her over and you walk away free. We will even reward you. Daniel's throat tightened. A reward, freedom, safety, no more running, no more hiding. He could walk away, go back to his life, and forget this nightmare. But then he looked at Saris again. Her hand trembled as it reached for his. Her voice was soft. If you give me to them, I will not blame you. But if you keep me, you choose a harder path. The words cut deep. Daniel felt trapped between fire and stone. His mind screamed to survive, to take the officer's offer. But his heart remembered the look in Saris's eyes when she whispered his name for the first time. The officer raised his hand, signaling the guards. Last chance, Daniel. Step forward. Leave the alien and live. The air grew heavy. The hum of engines, the crackle of rifles charging, the pounding of Daniel's heartbeat. It all blurred together. He had to decide. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He saw himself walking away, safe, free, but empty. He saw Saris dragged back into a box, her glowing eyes fading forever. His jaw tightened. He opened his eyes and his voice rang clear. I'm not leaving her. The officer's face darkened. Then you've chosen death. The guards raised their rifles. Red targeting beams painted across the crates, searching for him. Daniel pulled Saris closer, whispering fiercely, "Stay with me. No matter what happens." Saris's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You chose well." The officer gave the order. "Fire!" Energy blasts lit the docks, sizzling against metal crates. Sparks rained down. Daniel ducked, pulling Saris into cover. Heat burned across his arm where a shot grazed past. He looked around desperately. There had to be a way out. His eyes landed on a cargo loader parked nearby, its engine still humming. It was massive, built to carry entire containers. "Hold on," he whispered. He lifted Saris in his arms and ran. Blast tore into the ground behind him, but he didn't stop. He reached the loader, climbed into the cockpit, and slammed the ignition. The machine roared to life. The guards shouted, adjusting their aim. But Daniel swung the controls, and the loader's heavy arm smashed into the nearest stack of crates. Metal thundered as the containers collapsed, crashing down like falling walls. Guards scattered, shouting in panic. Daniel used the chaos to steer the loader forward, its bulk forcing a path. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but he didn't care. All that mattered was escape. Beside him, Saris leaned weakly against the console. Her eyes glowed faintly. "You chose the harder road. Now, we run it together." Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. "Then let's make it count." Behind them, the officer shouted, his voice filled with fury. More guards poured in, their rifles blazing. The docks shook with fire and thunder, but Daniel no longer hesitated. He had made his choice. And no matter how many stood in their way, he would not betray her. The cargo loader thundered through the docks, smashing aside crates and scattering guards. Alarms screamed through the night and red lights flashed across the steel walls. Daniel's hands gripped the controls so tight they shook. Beside him, Saris clung weakly to the console, her glowing eyes faint but steady. The guards regrouped quickly. Squads poured in from every direction, rifles blazing. Energy blasts struck the loader's sides, scorching metal. The heavy machine shook under the fire, but Daniel pushed harder, forcing it forward. "We can't keep this up," Daniel shouted. Saris turned her head, her voice soft but firm. "Then we end it." Daniel looked at her, his heart pounding. She was pale, weak, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. He knew what she meant. This wouldn't end with running. They would be hunted forever, unless they made a stand. The loader burst into the open hangar bay where massive cargo ships waited for launch. Fuel lines hissed, engines glowed, and workers screamed as the battle spilled into their path. At the far end of the bay, the officer stepped forward again. His black armor gleamed under the red lights, his weapon raised. He shouted over the chaos, his voice sharp and commanding. "Daniel, this is your last chance. Hand her over. You cannot win." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice rang out across the hangar. "I told you, I'm not leaving her." The officer sneered. "Then you'll die together." He raised his rifle, but before he could fire, Saris lifted her hand. Weak as she was, her fingers glowed with blue light. The air trembled. Tools, crates, and fuel canisters shook violently. A sudden wave of energy burst from her, knocking guards off their feet. Rifles clattered to the ground, sparks flew, and the hangar shook. Daniel stared in awe. "Saris, stop. You'll burn yourself out." Her face twisted in pain, sweat beading on her forehead. But her voice was calm. "This is the only way." The officer fought against the invisible force, his armor sparking. He shouted through clenched teeth. "She's killing herself, Daniel. She won't survive." "Save yourself!" Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to grab her, to pull her back, but he knew she was right. This was their stand, their only chance. He leapt from the loader, pulling a fallen rifle from the ground. He fired wildly, covering her as guards tried to regroup. The weapon hummed in his hands, each shot sending bursts of light into the chaos. Saris's glow grew brighter, filling the hangar with blinding blue light. Her hair lifted in the invisible wind, her eyes burning like stars. Crates exploded, metal twisted, and a shockwave hurled the guards away like dolls. The officer dropped to one knee, shielding his face. He screamed in rage. "Do you know what you've done? She isn't just meat, she is power. Humanity will never stop hunting her kind. You're throwing your life away." Daniel fired until the rifle burned hot. His voice was raw, filled with fury. "Then let them come. I'd rather die with her than live like you." The officer roared, charging forward through the storm. His weapon aimed at Daniel's chest. But before he could fire, Saris released one final wave of power. The shockwave ripped through the hangar, shattering windows, toppling machines, and sending the officer flying into a wall. He crashed hard, his weapon snapping in two. Silence followed. Smoke curled in the air. Sparks rained from broken lights. Daniel dropped the rifle, his body shaking. He turned to Saris only to see her collapse to her knees, the glow fading from her body. Saris. He rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow, her eyes flickered open. She looked at him, her lips forming a faint smile. "We are free." Tears burned in Daniel's eyes. "No, stay with me. Don't give up now, please." Her hand brushed his cheek, light as a feather. "You chose the harder path. That makes you strong, stronger than you know." Her glowing eyes dimmed, but before they closed, she whispered one last word. "Friend." Daniel held her tightly, his heart breaking. Around them, the hangar lay in ruins. The surviving guards fled into the smoke, their officer unconscious, the battle lost. But outside, in the vast darkness of space, signals pulsed through hidden channels. A distant fleet received the message. One of them has escaped. Daniel looked up at the shattered ceiling, his arms still around Saris. He knew this wasn't the end. Others would come. The hunt would continue. But for now, for this moment, they had won, and he would never let her sacrifice be forgotten. He stood carrying her gently in his arms and walked toward the nearest ship. Whatever came next, he would face it, not as a dock worker, not as a customer who asked for meat, but as a man who chose to fight. The final stand had only just begun.